Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're actually going to be covering something that honestly I've been avoiding just because it's a little bit, it's very circumstantial in how you use these features, and that is sketch constraints. There are many great ways you can use these features, but today I'm just going to be going over the top 7 that I use. I know there's only like 9. I don't really use the other 2. Initially this was a request for the top 5 and I couldn't really bring it down to that number, so I figured I'd add the last 2. And this was an idea by All the Gear No Idea. I really appreciate the comments that I've been getting, and this was a great request. So we're going to jump in, and I'm going to just highlight each individual one, how to use it, as well as there's a quick way to use each of these constraints and how you may want to utilize that as you are modeling and setting up your models with your sketches. So let's move over. Hey everybody, real quick before we jump in, I realized as I'm editing this video that these examples that I've given are mostly focusing on constraints to sketches that are already made. You'll be using these constraints a little different as you're making the sketch, but I'll make a separate video on that in the future. So let's just jump into it. All right, so I will be honest, I'm just going to do something really simple. So we just have this kind of shape right here that I've made. We have the origin right here. Again, reminder, always start in some way connect to the origin, whether it's a center point or a corner, whatever it is. Don't start off in empty space. You're going to cause much more problems for yourself. And when you're in your sketch page, you have right here your constraints. I've kind of changed this around a little bit to the ones that I typically use and in the order I typically use them. But as you can see, there are a number more, some of which I don't frequent. So first off, we have coincident. We have horizontal, vertical, tangent, equal, parallel, perpendicular, and colinear. So first with coincident, coincident is the very bare bones basic. It's pretty much you're just connecting a point to something, whether that is an endpoint of a line to another endpoint of another line, or an endpoint of the line to a line itself. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to delete this constraint right here. And I did that by hovering over that clicking on the connection and then hovering over this, clicking it, and then deleting it. So we have a free-flowing line, or dot on this line. Now what I can do is I can click on this endpoint, hold shift, click on this endpoint, and then just click coincident, and there you go. They're now connected. Now I could have also done, if I wanted to, I didn't have to connect it to this point. I could actually click the line, hold shift, click the point, and same thing. You can also see right here, it's making these other constraints that are not possible to use hidden, so you can't use them. So we'll click coincident, and now this point is connected to this line. And so if I move this around, it's going to stay on this line, even past the line, which is pretty cool. If I move it up, it's going to move the line up as well. And so that's something just to keep in mind there. All right, now what I'm going to show you is actually the quick way of doing this, because I personally, I'd say more often than not, actually use this quicker way. And that is you click on the point you want to be connecting, and you hover and drag it over to what it is ever you want. So if it's the endpoint, it'll just snap onto that. If it's the line, you just snap onto the line. Now you should even be able to, go past the line. Nope, it doesn't actually continue to pass line in this situation. So you do have to be on the line if you're going to be dragging it. You can also go to the midpoint, which you see right there has that triangle. This is actually really nice, especially if you're looking at like cams. It really opens up a lot of possibilities of just quickly placing all of those restraints. All right, so I'm going to connect that back together. That is coincident. All right, so horizontal and vertical. Horizontal and vertical, it's a really straightforward feature, to be honest. So you can click on the line itself, and then you just go to horizontal, vertical, and boom, there you go. It auto clicks it to the closest. If it's at a 45, from my experience, it goes horizontal, but it also could go to vertical. I don't know. So it's just auto generating what's the closest. And so if you click on any of these, you can also click on the feature first. And by doing so, now you're locked into that feature. And so you can click on multiple assets of your design all at once, which is really nice. So we'll keep that one vertical right there. There's not as many ways to actually lock this in terms of like adding this feature without using the actual feature up here. If you are attached to the origin, you might be able to lock it in based off of, nope. So yeah, so there's not really a way that you can lock in a horizontal or vertical quickly. You just need to actually use the feature. All right, so tangent. Tangent is a great one. I use this so much. It's pretty straightforward again. So with tangent, you're having to click a line and a radius of some sort, or a circle. So I have this curve right here. I can just click on this and click on that, and there you go. It automatically creates that tangent point. Some other ways you can do that is you can click on both these, hold shift, and then click on the feature. But last of all, you can do is when you're setting the radius, in this case, this was a 3-point turn. So I'm actually going to add it as I'm building it, or sorry, 3-point arc. You can click on your 2 points, and right here, it'll actually give you suggested points right there and there. You can see on the left one and the right one that those are tangent. And when you're setting up these sketches, typically that is something that you can be doing as you're creating these lines, is auto-generate these constraints. So keep an eye out for that. So in this case, you can see I've made a tangent right here. I did not here. And so we're just going to click on tangent and create that, and it's kind of locked that in. And again, if you want to get rid of any of these, you just click on the restraint. If you can't see the restraint, sometimes you actually have to click on the point where the restraint is and then delete that. Next one we have is equal. Equal is pretty straightforward. It also doesn't really have a shortcut for it, unfortunately. So what you just do is you click on equal and you click on 2 lines. And there you go. You have equal length is what it's talking about. But it can also be done with circles as well. Let's say I want a circle right here. I can do equal radius. And so it's making those the same. This is extremely helpful if you're making something with a lot of holes in it and it's not in a pattern situation. And so let's say I am making some mechanical part and I have holes all over the place in just really random places that are going to be attached to other pieces of my build. I can then just go around and I can just click and make all of these equal. Nice thing about this is then if I want to change the measurements of one of these and make it, let's say 1 inch, it changes all of them at the same time. So that is a really, really powerful constraint if you're not using, let's say, a pattern, which is often the times typical for a hole, for example. So I'm just going to go back to right here. All right. All right, next one we have is parallel. Parallel is quite straightforward. You click on 2 lines, it makes them parallel. It will depend on which one is going to be basing the parallel off of due to constraints. So like in this situation, the bottom line is already constrained for being tangent to this arc, and so it automatically is going to be forcing this one into a parallel. If you want to do the quick version, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So in this case, let's say I grab this. It's not really locking onto things. Yeah, so I'm going to delete this line real quick and kind of show it this way. So if you drag this line and actually make it connect right here, but don't let go of your mouse, you can now reference it. And so it's kind of almost like you're clicking 2 objects, but only clicking once. And so now this has been referenced to that, and you've created a parallel. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Like in this situation before, you could see that it was already closed off and connected. It wouldn't let me reconnect and then create that parallel. So that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to do a parallel. All right, so next we have is perpendicular. So actually let's undo this parallel. And okay, same sort of thing. You just click on perpendicular, click on 2 lines, and it's going to make that perpendicular. I typically don't do it this way for a number of reasons. First off, I almost always make sure that this line is connected at some point before doing a perpendicular, just so it holds that in place, because typically if you're wanting a perpendicular, you're wanting them to be actually connected. But again, this is one of those features that almost always I actually am going to manually put in perpendicular. It's not deciding to snap right now. So in this situation, there we go, right there. you can see as I'm sliding it, there's a couple of spots it's wanting to lock to. You can actually bring it in to right there, and it'll snap that little right angle for a perpendicular. So that's the quick way of doing it. Typically, it would snap on a lot faster. I'm not sure why I was connecting to all those other areas pretty quick. So we will get rid of that. Now, last but not least, we have colinear. I love colinear. I use it all the time. It's just a great way of doing all sorts of just, it's just so very useful. And I added this extra line here just to kind of prove some points about it. So colinear, again, you're going to be clicking on 2 lines. So colinear, click on this one, and boom, it's the same line. It's the same direction, which is really, really nice. But one of the cool things about it as well is it doesn't have to be connected. And so I could use colinear and click on this one right here and click on that right there. They're the same projected line in this case. Something I want to show you in terms of how to use this one quickly, and you may have noticed it when I made it, is if you reference, just hover over a line before using it, you can see it's creating that projected line. And so if I click on that and I keep dragging it, you can see not only is it creating that that colinear, but it's also creating the parallel, which obviously if it's colinear, it's parallel. And so we can click on that, and it's just said it's parallel. So in this situation, it did not create that actual colinear line. It just created the parallel. But that is a quick unlocked constraint as you're making it. So you may have to go back and then add it later, like I did just right there. All right, so that is it. That is my top 7 constraints, and I definitely can do another video later to talk about the other ones that I didn't do in this video. Honestly, again, I really don't use them very much, but I can make a video if people would like. If you would like some more examples, like actual like parts and things that I've made using these constraints in a sketch situation, I do have a couple videos. I will try posting at least one of them on here at this end screen to show how I use them and actually making something as I'm going through a project. If you found this helpful and useful, please hit that like button. I would really like to hear more comments about constraints and sketches. This is a realm that I've had a hard time figuring out how to make videos because of how unique each and every project is. So I definitely appreciate those comments and keep them coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Keep modeling.